Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Constantine, the top G of Greece, and this is going to be a reaction video to Ema Watson's famous UN speech on feminism. Enjoy.
And the more I've spoken about feminism, the more I have realized that fighting for women's rights has too often become synonymous with man-hating.
Well, maybe that's because in a big majority of cases, that's actually what it is. She may be well-meaning, like a lot of them are, and particularly at her age back then. I mean, this is, I don't know, almost 10 years ago. It was a while back. Everybody knows about this speech. But, you know, they might be young and idealistic and whatever. And these Hollywood, these actors and actresses, they live in their leftist bubble and they think that everyone's, you know, they're very idealistic, okay? So a lot of them, I'm sure they're well-meaning, okay? Like she believes her own BS, but what they fail to understand is that the male experience is completely different, okay? Like in many cases, what happens, I mean, it's kind of like a zero-sum game, okay? This battle of the sexes, let's call it, all right? So now that, you know, the future is female, apparently, past several decades, you know, more and more so, it's becoming like that. The future is female. Men and boys are being disadvantaged at every turn, more and more. Now, like I said, this is nothing, and there's a lot of people that have done critical reactions to this video. And across the board, they all say, and I will say also, that, you know, this is not anything against Ema Watson or any Ema Watson for that matter, okay? The point is that they have a blind spot. She has a blind spot, and people like her, whether men or women, I mean, male feminist, that's an oxymoron, that term. Sorry, but it's an oxymoronic term to me. It's not that you can't be a man that cares about women's issues or women in general, of course not, but the term itself, feminist, seems to denote that it's just intrinsically, just by definition, anti-male, okay? And it's just not just because of the term itself. I mean, it's from the history of the movement. We've seen it, and it's just becoming worse and worse. And ever since, you know, from the time that she made that speech till now, it's become even worse. So yes, people have very good reason to think that it's man-hating or misandry, okay? Oh, come on.
If there is one thing I know for certain, it is that this has to stop.
What exactly?
For the record, feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities.
Oh boy, this again. What kind of universe does she live in where women do not have equal rights and opportunities with men? I don't understand. The best way to tell a feminist, or like a toxic feminist, because, you know, some of them might be a little bit more, you know, mild, lukewarm, but the toxic versions are when they talk about, oh, we don't have the same opportunities and rights, and actually mean it. I mean, look at her face. She believes what she's saying. I'm thinking, what on what planet, what country do you mean specifically? You know, like if she's talking about certain pockets of the earth, certain Middle Eastern countries and stuff, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a UN speech after all, so perhaps she's thinking globally, but the way she's talking, it's almost as if like, oh, not even in the West do we have equality yet, and we have to keep fighting. Until what? Like, what really, see, what gets me, what my big question is, what exactly is this end goal they keep talking about? Like, more needs to be done. What are you talking about? More what? The equality that they were striving for, half a century ago, or well, longer than that, before that, the equality they've been fighting for I don't know, for a century or more, it's been achieved since the 70s, easily. Even before that, we could say. One could say that it's been about a century, okay, a little less than a century. So, but especially like in the 60s and 70s, in the 70s in particular, it really started to gain momentum. I don't understand, like, unless they're talking about, because this entire philosophy is built on the fact, just like Rollo correctly says often, it's based on the social constructionist view of everything. Okay, life is like everything's socially constructed. So they can't, this whole glass ceiling thing for women, for women, they can't understand that, or they don't want to accept whatever, But anyway, the point is that their worldview is such where the only reason that an Elon Musk exists and there's no female equivalent is because there's a glass ceiling, and this glass ceiling is socially constructed. Okay, that it's done by people like Musk and company, whoever, like the really top level men like him. They deliberately keep women down, and so on. So that's where that's their basic premise. Okay, that's the entire basis of all the stuff, whatever it might be. It might end up becoming different. Like there's many different strands to it, but it all starts from that they think that there's some structural thing that's happening, structural oppression that's inbuilt, and that other thing that we keep hearing, that the person who has the privilege is the last one to see it, like, because it's invisible to you if you have privilege. That makes sense, yes, but how exactly am I, using myself as an example because it's the best example I know, that's the only reason, how exactly what have I done in my life that contributes to the oppression of women, and doing it unbeknownst to me, but knownst to them. See what I did there? Those who picked it up, mention it in the comments if you will. How is it that, like, let's say if I had my own business, I did have my own business, but it wasn't huge, so I kind of employed a few people here and there, like I had a house cleaning, handyman, gardening thing that I had in Melbourne. Yeah, I had men and women helping me out occasionally. I guess you could say that a man could unconsciously, without realizing it, look at a woman who sends him he gets a resume from a woman and then a resume from a man, and like just automatically thinks, oh, the guy's going to do a better job. In that job, maybe I thought a woman would, because it had to do with cleaning, so I thought, oh, the women would be better at that one. So I really can't see how the average, like the bulk of humanity, the bulk of male humanity, of male kind, would just somehow unconsciously keep working towards perpetuating this inequality. But this inequality does not exist. This is the problem. It all looks well and good, the way she presents it, and there's like hordes of betas that don't understand the concepts that I'm going to try to bring across in this video and in other reaction videos that are critical of her speech. They just don't seem to understand sorry, that it's just the basic premise is flawed. Okay, their fundamental core beliefs are flawed, and then from these flawed beliefs, all else flows. Okay, so if your fundamentals are wrong, then none of it's going to work. That's why it never works. That's what I mean. It's like communism. All right, this is kind of like, it's very similar to communism, the way it's structured. Okay, it really is, the oppressor-oppressed narrative, right? That's why it never works, because they're constantly looking for a social constructivist explanation behind the fact that, drum roll, men and women are different. Okay, they make different choices. A lot of women don't want to go into STEM just because they're just not hardwired to like that stuff. Because the classic, and there have been many, but there was that famous paper that was that was written on that, the research they'd done on the type of primate. I don't remember what they're called. They were not chimps, something else. The name escapes me now. But almost everyone is familiar with this research, where they found that straight away, like from infants, they would put like a picture up, like they would give a doll to the male ones, and the males would just grab the doll, take it apart, rip the head off, treat it completely mechanically, like a thing, like an object. Okay, they objectified it. Such pigs. And the females, on the other hand, they started treating it as if it was like a real baby. Okay, as if it was a child of one of their own, whatever that species was. And with the apes, we share, what is it, like it's insanely, like 99 point something percent similarity in the DNA. So it's insanely high. It's very similar. There's only a very small, a point something percentage difference that differentiates us, that differentiates Homo sapiens from them. So data that comes from such studies that use the primates is very, very, very reliable. You could pretty much 100% guarantee that it would have been the identical result if we did the experiment on actual humans. Okay, so that's how it is. I mean, the data is in. All right, the data is in, and it has been in. And why do people, a lot of the time intelligent people, okay, I'm not saying she's dumb, okay, her character even in the Harry Potter universe, she was specifically chosen to play like the nerdy, bookish girl that was really smart. Okay, so why though, these intelligent people, why can't they look at the research that I mentioned? Everybody knows that experiment, that study. So, well, everybody, almost, the vast majority of people do. And if you don't, you're going to know someone that does. So there's no way, like with 2 or 3 degrees of separation, you're eventually going to come across it. So I think people just refuse to look at these studies that go against this whole social constructionist thing. Well, what social constructionist? I remember when I was a kid. I was a child. Like, I was attracted to playing with trucks and He-Man figures and Star Wars figures and little soldiers, toy soldiers and stuff. That's a guy thing. I never remember like any female cousins or family friends and stuff liking the same thing. They were in turn attracted to dolls and stuff, and when I saw that, I was just horrified. I'm like, what is this creature? This strange creature, We're the same species, but they are so very different to us. They like completely different things, and they don't understand or like the things that I do, and they don't approve of the way I handle life and stuff. You realize this like from 5 fucking years old. Okay, we don't need that study. We don't need the experiments and stuff. The thing that I cited a few minutes ago, but nevertheless, these people, in seeking out power, they convince themselves that it must be somebody that's keeping us down and so on. So then they keep saying, just because there's not a female Elon Musk, just because it's not 50-50 representation in STEM, in politics, in the White House, in the army, in Hollywood, every fucking industry. But they never want 50-50 representation in plumbing and bricklaying, do they? Only in the high level jobs, of course. So that's the problem. I'm not saying that they're not genuine. I'm not saying that, the idea of men and women being equal under the law, definitely not equal, as in we're exactly the same, like a woman being able to bench press as much as the strongest man on earth and whatever. I mean, no. But equal in the eyes of God and equal under the law. Well, Miss Ema Watson, sorry to tell you that equality has been around since before you and I were born. Okay, I'm older as well, so it was around even before I was born. Okay, mid-70s. So it's amazing to me. Like nobody seems to understand. Like people that are like at least even a little bit red-pilled on the facts that I just started off with here. They're like, wait, what?
What the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly, because it's like, what are you actually driving at? Like, what is the ultimate goal, the end goal? Like, the goal of feminism has, I'll say it very calmly, very slowly, very deliberately. The goal of feminism has been accomplished for at least 50 years now. I'll say it again. The goal of feminism has been accomplished. It's done. Since the mid-70s and even earlier. But especially from that point on, it was like you've got equality of opportunity. You've got equality under like a woman can go to university, just like a man can. A woman can own property, just like a man can. A woman can go and register a business name and blah, 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 or however you do it, to go and start a business. A woman can become an actress. A woman can go and learn an instrument, can train her voice and become a singer, become a guitarist, become a pianist, become a singer-songwriter. I mean, there's so many successful examples of this, Madonna, Adele, blah, 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 whoever, Janet Jackson, Alanis Morissette, Avril Lavigne, Pink. I just mentioned some of the ones that I like. I don't listen to just classic heavy metal all the time. There's some chick rock that I enjoy. So I'm sure that those women are not going around saying, oh, more needs to be done. You got to look, it's a man's world, because in a sense it's like the Highlander thing where Conor McLeod said there can be only one. It's like it's like you have to beat everyone to get to the top to win the prize. So there can only be one guy at the top, one person at the top of a particular competence hierarchy. Okay? So that's quite brutal. It's inherently meritocratic. However many laws and communistic manipulations and stuff the state tries to do, it will be by its nature inherently meritocratic at the end of the day. Nature will just take its course and circumvent all the state, the meddling of the state, the worst example of which is the communist states, any states that have been run on the communist model. So it's always meritocratic, highly competitive, very brutal. But it's just how it is. That's the real world. That's like the macro, like the world, the big bad world out there. In the home and in the community, it's more communal. Okay, it's more round table. Everyone gets a say. It's a King Arthur round table, blah blah blah. Communal communism. Everyone gets, we've got pizza and there's seven of us, and one guy, and everyone, the 6 guys, pay. Let's say the big ones, the jumbo ones that have got 12 pieces. So there's 7 people, group of friends or something, or workplace or whatever, siblings or housemates or however you want to think about it, 7 people. buy a pizza, 12 pieces. Only 6 of them had paid. 6 guys paid, a couple of bucks each. The pizza was $12. So 2 times 12, 2 times 6, 12. The 7th guy, for some reason, didn't pay, didn't have money or whatever, was cheap. However, whatever. He got divorced, graped or something. He's got no money at the moment because he had to give it all to alimony. The state is basically threatening to put him in jail unless he doesn't pay up till the kids are 18. So this one person doesn't pay. Now, in the communal model, it will be like, give him a piece as well. Give him some. All right. But in the real world, it wouldn't be like that. So the real world, that's why they say it's a man's world. It's because men, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been the ones going out there fighting the woolly mammoths. Okay, so it's in our very DNA to be hierarchical and meritocratic in this manner. Okay, so we understand the harsh nature of reality, the competitive nature of reality. We understand that there is a hierarchy, and it's very, very, like the whole lobster thing of Jordan Peterson, okay? He did great work. Uppercase G, uppercase W, for those who know what I did there, you know what I mean. So he did great work there. A big part of his life mission in this lifetime was to restore that whole false construct that the neo-Marxist, satanic neo-Marxist forces are trying to brainwash, particularly the youth of the West, that hierarchy is a social construct. And he's like, wait a minute, I got to show you this data on the crustaceans, on the lobsters, And this whole lobster meme started with him and stuff, but he's spot on about that. I mean, lobsters are like a very early version of us, like a very, very low, much lower on the evolutionary scale than we are. And they very much exhibit the hierarchy. The hierarchy, the idea of hierarchy is so ingrained in them that they cannot function any other way. Okay, like when they've done the studies, like when you drop on the hierarchy, serotonin levels drop, so then your mood worsens, and it can lead to depression and so on. So it's real. Basically, what Peterson and I am saying here is that the hierarchy is real. And trying to say, but the glass ceiling, but why is there no female Elon Musk? Listen, women, I will acknowledge that, they may have had it more difficult in the past, but then there's a lot of arguments that could go against that as well. They could say, well, listen, you were actually a protected class. You didn't have to work yet, you didn't have to do much. You sat at home, and the man had to do all the hard work. Really, I mean, you had a few less privileges because of this, but then you had a lot of safety. You didn't have as many responsibilities as the men do. So it's commensurate. It's like the more responsibility, the more privileges you get. It's like, I mean, if it's good enough for Spider-Man's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility. So so what I'm saying is, evolutionarily, the female mind, fortunately or unfortunately, has not been wired in a way so as to, that's a big sentence, so as to really be on board with this whole meritocratic, highly competitive, pyramidal, competence hierarchy way of conducting ourselves, of getting out there and, killing the woolly mammoth and bringing it back to the village, and then we've got like food for the next 2 weeks, okay? And the guy becomes a hero and he's the alpha, and then he gets all the girls. This is in our DNA still. So that's not socially constructed. That is not socially constructed. And there's studies, like I said, that they did with the primates. Men are attracted to things, women are attracted to people. So that's why much bigger percentage of men, on average, are attracted to STEM and are into things like software, engineering and stuff. It's just, I don't know why people think this is hate speech. I really don't, because it's, I mean, the studies have shown that it's real. So if we have reliable studies that confirm what I'm saying, then, you know, or is it a case of people not wanting to accept the truth in case they stunt women's I don't know, career progress or whatever? I mean, people are free to choose whatever job, whatever career, whatever vocation they wish. Okay? And with politics, a big one is about politics. STEM and politics are two big ones that always come up. Politics, again, the female mind's not as wired as the male mind to be attracted to politics. I butchered that sentence, but you know what I mean. Men are more likely to be interested in politics than women are. It's just our wiring, okay? So those two things, the politics and the STEM stuff, has to do with the fact that men are more impersonal, we're more aloof. We are designed to envision, invent, create, build, maintain, and also administer / rule over the macro, the large, bird's eye view of society, like ruling over large societal structures, civilizational structures, having positions, like generals, kings, presidents, prime ministers, that kind of thing, heads of massive, of giant corporations, Elon Musk types, Jeff Bezos, that type of thing. It's just the masculine, the way the masculine mind thinks, okay? Plus we have way more testosterone. It's like, what is it, like 15x or something, or a little bit more than that, something like that. Close to 20 times more on average than women. So particularly in our younger years, like from 20 to 50 or 20 to mid 40s, it's like the testosterone is just non-stop, 24/7. So of course you're going to get more cases of male Elon Musks and not achieving parity. What the fuck is this parity thing anyway? No one ever spoke about that 50 years ago, or even less. So it's a completely false neo-Marxist social constructionist idea. That's just the reality of the situation, and the studies like the one I keep mentioning with the primates does not bear out in reality. The thing is, you got a theory about how life works. Okay, fine. Look at how society works and how it has worked for thousands of years. But, okay, you might say, yeah, but in the past it was a social construct because men were in power and they kept women down. All right, fine. Then look at only in the past 50 years what's happened then. If you insist that the past was oppression and it was done deliberately, look at from the mid-70s till now then. It will still show you the same thing anyway. All right. So no matter what we do, no matter how we try to, construct women and men in the way that we would like them to be, as opposed to how they actually are, nothing really changes. And they still, women still end up wanting to go into more people-oriented jobs, and men go into more things and objects.
It is the theory of the political, economic and social equality of the sexes.
There you go. She just said it. She said political equality. So, because I knew she was going to say it, that's why I mentioned the parity in politics. And you've had conversation, like a lot of viral interview clips of Jordan Peterson and the like, all over YouTube, about how he's always arguing with these feminists on panels and stuff, these feminist journalists and stuff. They're like, why are there not 50% women in politics and whatever? That classic one with that Australian woman where he was like, well, why is it 99% of men are in bricklaying? Why don't you ever speak about that? Yeah, it's what I said. What I said is the truth of the matter. There's two types of people when it comes to these conversations, men and women. And particularly the men I don't understand, because the masculine brain, you would think that it would be more inclined to see things logically and from the masculine perspective and understand what the fuck I'm saying right now. But it's not, especially in the Anglosphere. Oh, these men, oh my God, don't get me started. I probably need to make separate videos about why men in those countries are just, they've got a lot of problems. They need help, I'm telling you. It's just their attitudes and it's just like this self-hatred, this self-abnegation. I don't know. And it's uniquely an Anglosphere phenomenon. I don't know, man. I need to do a study on it, perhaps, use British primates and see why. Anyway, but yeah, the politics. They expect... No, let me rephrase that. They think that the fact that it's not literally 50-50 men in politics, men and women in politics, that's magically a sign of systemic oppression. I had a girlfriend, short-term thing, about a decade ago, Samantha. We were speaking. I was getting more and more, well, not really, not more and more interested, but I was fairly interested in politics even back then. I got much more so after Emperor Trump. But when I went out with her for a bit, 2012, late 2012, I remember we had a conversation about politics, and I tried to get deep with her, and she was like, "Oh, babe, I don't really like I'm not into this." And I saw from her reaction, it was like zero interest, zero. She didn't even know the basics, and she didn't want to know. And I thought, this is interesting. And then you look at, statistically, it's about a quarter of women in politics. So it's usually about 75 male to 25% female in politics. And I think I know the explanation, actually the actual explanation is that they are considerably less interested. They, meaning women, are considerably less interested in going into such a career when compared to men. That's the only explanation. All right. So this is why her whole argument, and whoever holds, the similar positions that Miss Ema Watson has here, they are based on false axioms. So that's why it's just never going to work. What it does is just it makes life harder for both men and women. They think that they're helping, but by trying to force things, like trying to socially construct men and women by various programs and this and that and restrictive laws and Title IX and this and that and affirmative actions and all these things, it's like, buddy, what are you doing? Most women are not as attracted to STEM as men are. What do you not fucking understand? It's so simple. It only bothers them because jobs like that pay well. Okay, so they're high paying and they're good jobs. And it's like, oh, we need to get more women into this because it's the only reason. And then when they make more money, they find that men are not
I started questioning gender-based assumptions a long time ago. When I was 8, I was confused being called bossy because I wanted to direct the plays that we would put on for our parents. But the boys were not.
Again, social constructionism. She is amazed, she's shocked that most people find it strange that a woman exhibits the same, masculine bossy traits as a man or a boy, because she was saying she was 14 there. We're just wired that way. Men are just more assertive, like I said before, higher testosterone and everything. I mean, it's in our DNA for hundreds of thousands of years, all right? So this whole social constructionism view, Rollo is so right about that one. That is the key. If we get rid of that, this entire house of cards falls. But, but then there's the other thing that women, it's also hardwired into us for men to be more objective, men being more partial to objective truth and facts, and women having a greater tendency to go towards the subjective, the emotional, the social constructivist route. So that's an added reason as to why these types of ideologies cater more to women. I mean, also women, tradition, on average, they tend more to the left, okay, politically, I mean. So the farther you go to the left, the more social constructionist it becomes, the more anti-hierarchy, and so on. So even the voting patterns 100% prove what we're trying to say here. It's like men are more, they're friendlier, okay? We're more partial, like I said before, to just looking at the objective facts in an aloof, detached way, and not trying to explain reality away as in, oh, the reason this happened, the reason I lost is because there's some kind of anti-masculine systemic thing in place, that like if a guy is like, I don't know, an athlete or something, okay, and he's fighting, or something else, some kind of sport, where he's playing tennis or whatever, kickboxing or whatever you want to, make up something of your own example, but, and it's like Highlander. There can be only one. I could not really envision a man, I can't imagine that a man who loses at such an endeavor would then turn around and say, oh, well, it's this whole systemic anti-silver, anti-silver medal winner mentality where they only care about the guy who won the gold medal, and second best is pretty much the same as being zero. So they only care about the top guy of the pyramid, and and it's been perpetuated, and we're being brainwashed by it and conditioned by movies like Highlander and all that stuff, and all these cheesy 80s lines in movies that you hear in the trailers saying, one man with a mission to take down the cabal destroys it all by himself. All this stuff, like all this whole society, the art, the fantasy novels, everything, the adventure novels, the Hollywood movies, all built around some super strong Schwarzenegger type of hero that comes in and just one guy destroying everything and taking down the bad guys. It's like some loser, blue-pilled fat guy could probably say, well, I don't like that. That's very patriarchal. That's too meritocratic in nature. It's too, they could even say it's too reptilian, too sociopathic. It's like, all this competition, man, it's so hard. And these are the types of men that tend towards, Marxism and communism, and would probably agree that Bolshevism was an amazing thing. You see how it works? So even the men who are anti-hierarchy and anti-meritocratic, and who, are communism adjacent or even full-on communists, they're men biologically, but energetically and mentality-wise, their thinking is feminine. It's more yin, okay? So either way you look at it, this whole communitarian, anti-hierarchical, everybody needs to get a slice of pizza, even the guy who didn't pay for it, who didn't chip in a couple of bucks. It's a feminine way of viewing the world. So that's why, on average, I'm not saying all, but I'm saying on average, you get a much higher percentage of women being attracted and believing these types of ideas, having this worldview, as opposed to men. But still, there's more and more men that you're seeing, like more and more blue-pilled men becoming like, I think she says here on some other similar video, saying something about, I was so delighted that, I got so many messages from men as well that said I was very brave that I came out and said this stuff because someone had to say it finally. What do you mean? Like, Gloria Steinem has been saying the same stuff for 50 years ago. They've been saying this forever. But nothing's really going to change because it's all social constructionism. Or the bulk of it anyway. There are truths mixed in, but if the whole thing is based on social constructionism, which doesn't exist, meaning, because people are like, what do you mean it doesn't exist? Is it invisible? Like, it doesn't exist meaning, come on, read between the lines, people. It's like, it means social constructionism is not in and of itself a theory that applies to actual reality. Okay? That's what I mean when I say it's not real. So let's see, because I don't want to make this too long. Jesus, it's already like over half an hour. Come on, YouTube. YouTube's being slow, notoriously slow.
Teen, I started to be sexualized by certain elements of the media. When at 15,
Okay, so she's saying another classic trope is like I was sexualized by the certain elements of the media. Well, I need to make a video on this because I've referenced these scales several times now in other videos and in this one now. If you distill the various metrics upon which men and women grade one another to size one another up on whether we are appropriate, good enough to become long-term girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, you can distill the feminine scale down to 1, to the beauty scale, and the masculine one to the competence scale. Now, when I'm saying beauty scale, it's not, all men are pigs, all they care about is if I've got big boobies and whatever. No. But overall, it's like we look at, there's like the physical beauty, psychological beauty, mental beauty, spiritual beauty. The spiritual beauty has to do with that amazing yin-like energy. Like I about 5 months ago, this amazing little cat came into my life. This might sound random, but it's not. Just bear with me for half a minute. This amazing little cat. I was never really a cat person. I was more of a dog person. I was kind of like neutral on cats, and I was starting to slowly become cat friendly. But now I'm a full-on cat person. This cat came to my life magically. He just got trapped accidentally in my car engine, and I went and had to rescue it, and now it's my cat. I now understand why there's so many cat people, because that amazing yin energy, this thing that they do, especially when they're purring, that's magical. So cats are yin, dogs are yang, that's a known thing that people say, well, dogs are more like men, cats are like women. So that is the spiritual component of the beauty scale on women. Like they have that beauty, like that inner beauty, like there's something about their aura, like there's something like very much like cats. Like it doesn't even have to be purring. I mean, it's just sitting there, a couple of meters away from you. It's just sitting there. You're like, what the fuck's it doing? I mean, it's not as active as dogs. It's boring. Blah blah blah. I used to say when I was younger, when I was more in my masculine, I'm like, I want a dog, so I can run around with it and stuff, and go and run at the beach with it, and take it for a drive. Because if you take the cat in the car, it's going to just be yelling the entire way. You know how it is. But it's a completely different ball game with the cat. The dog does not have that invisible power that the cats have. So that's all part, and that's a very feminine thing that the cats have. Women have this as well, and this is primarily what we are attracted to: a feminine energy, not just she's hot, hourglass figure, big boobs. Yes, that's like the lowest level materialistic expression of that feminine nature. Clearly, we're going to be attracted to that too. But I mean, come on, aren't women attracted to Jason Momoa and so on? But we, like all, well, on all levels, on all the different planes of existence, let's say, okay? But it can be distilled down to the beauty scale. So again, she's using like the typical trope, I was sexualized, men are pigs. No. Go back to the thing I mentioned in the first 5 minutes, that the study they did, the experiment on the primates, where it clearly showed, like they gave them a doll, and the baby primate was tearing it apart, like it was just an object, like a transformer. Didn't care. The girl, the primate girl baby, thought it was a child, and she was acting like she was feeding it and cuddling it and stuff. Like, okay, so the instincts that we're born with, those instincts. Okay, so because men are more visual and our sexuality is more visual, and in general whatever we look at, it's like we see it as it's like we're more detached, and we see it more as a thing rather than an individual. It's like, this is our approach also to problems. I keep saying problem like Chinese guys, like problem. But Where is it? Bear with me. It's worth the wait.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Most of the time I do, but not always. So, yeah, so our problem-solving abilities are also, they also very much reflect that innate masculine male nature, right? Like, we just take a problem, we break it apart into its component parts, and it's like, okay, problem, yeah, solution. It's like almost like putting on a whiteboard in 2 columns and saying the problem and then the solution next to it. Okay, what's the problem? This. What are we going to do to solve it? That. And, you know, a lot of the relationship advice on YouTube and so on, they often talk about the fact that women lose it when they're getting emotional and they have an issue that they come to their boyfriend and talk to about. And the guy's like, oh, what's wrong, honey? All right, so what's the problem? This, and that. All right, cool. This is what you got to do to fix it. It's like, you're not listening to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not listening to you. I just solved the fucking problem for you. But that's the stark difference between men and women. It's like, we just look at the thing, we break it down into its component parts, like engineers. See? How interesting is that? STEM, engineering, you're getting the point, right? So it's just the masculine brain, right? And that also translates into our sexuality as well, the way we see it. Like, women freak out at they not freak out, but they are appalled, and they find it usually abhorrent, depending on the individual situation, of course. There's some women dislike it more than others, but generally they're not very happy about the fact that we see them more in a visual way, rather than, oh, I want you to look at my inner world and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, we'll get to that, but if your exterior is not hot enough for me, I'm not going to be interested in looking at, discovering your inner world eventually. It's just not. It's just, sorry, it's just that's how it works. So by her saying, and by all the modern feminists saying, oh, I was sexualized, and you weren't sexualized. It's just, like I said, the beauty scale, the competence scale. Okay? A common saying on the online male spaces and dating spaces is like, women are treated as beauty objects or sex objects, while men are treated as success objects. Do you see, again, the beauty scale, the competence scale? So women are attracted to our success, and a lot of the time, they get accused of being gold diggers and all this. So it takes 2 to tango, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, YouTube. We haven't got all day. This is already going on.
Girlfriends started dropping out of their beloved sports teams because they didn't want to appear muscly. When at 18, my male friends were unable to express their feelings. I decided that I was a feminist.
Whenever they start with feelings, that's where you got to start to worry, okay?
And this seemed uncomplicated to me.
Men just don't operate that way. It's like feelings, it's not that, we're not like Spock or like C-3PO. We're not androids with no feelings, contrary to what some women might think. But we're not run by our feelings, okay? We're not obsessed with them, okay? It's like a secondary thing that's there. And then logic always prevails, right? So when it's all this whole overabundance of feelings and it's all like a feelings-based thing, you're like, okay, here we go. She's going to be saying about men not being able to express their feelings, and then they have to become more like women to express their, where this leads. It's like modern therapy, that Freudian couch therapy bullshit that never works for men. Talk about your feelings. Why? Because it's gonna, you're gonna get relief. You're gonna be relieved, and then you're gonna understand really what the underlying problem is behind it, and blah blah blah. No. Most men who've tried that shit doesn't work, and then they end up putting you on psych meds and stuff, which make the situation worse. most of the time rather than not. So anyway, but that's another rabbit hole. All right, let's see. Continue. Come on, Hermione.
But my recent research has shown me that feminism has become an unpopular word.
I wonder why.
Women are choosing not to identify as feminists.
I don't blame them. Seriously, I'm not being
Apparently,
sarcastic or facetious or whatever. I don't blame them. Why would they?
I'm among the ranks of women whose expressions are seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, and anti-men, unattractive even.
Well, look, it depends on actually how. Look, she's describing something now from second-hand basis, okay? Second-hand description, sorry. I haven't seen this. The thing that she's describing that, I spoke a bit firmly and a bit aggressively, and most of the men thought that was a turn-off, and blah, 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 blah. I would like to see video footage of said interaction/interactions, and I will judge for myself. Was she being fair, and the man was really under like a patriarchal programming that thought, hey, go back to the kitchen, you don't raise your voice to me, who are you, women should be seen, not heard. Is it really that which is what she's suggesting and what she probably thought when it happened, when said instances happened? Or was it a case of that she was being over the top, how could you call it? Like, should I say the B word? Okay, she doesn't look like one, but I lived in Melbourne for a long chunk of my life. Very unfortunately, I did it for you guys. It's like I've seen that movie, so you don't have to. I mean, the people that were already born there, you're completely lost. There will be people, Melbourneites that are born and bred, that are watching this, that just heard that now. It's like, what? Voted the best city in the world for like 100 years in a row in that fake news magazine. Yeah. This is a direct message to people that were born and bred in Melbourne and that have either not or very rarely gotten out of that place, that have pretty much 99% of their lives lived just there. It's like a fish that's never come out of the water, okay? You have no fucking idea what is outside of that communist light play. Communism light. Melbourne is communism light, L-I-T-E. So trust me, I've lived there, and having lived in Athens, Greece as a teenager, my entire high school years were in Athens, Greece. So I became considerably red-pilled and I got detoxed from the Anglospheric matrix. So then I went back there in my early 20s and I was appalled by what I saw. And I saw a lot of these behaviors. I saw a lot of women acting in such a bossy, aggressive way. I'm like, this is not attractive, okay? But they see it like when you push back, they see it as you're being misogynist and this and that, the usual. So I would have to see it, okay? Was the man really this? Come on, Andrew. Quick.
Be quiet. Go.
Was he really that? Or did she think it was that? Okay? It's very hard to gauge. I'm not saying she's imagining things or she's lying or exaggerating, but we would have to be like, you have to see the male perspective as well. You have to see the actual individual case. Like I said, I want video footage. I'm telling you, I want video footage of the instances that she speaks of. Maybe she was overbearing. You don't know. We can't know if we were not there. Because I've seen it live many times in Melbourne, so I don't know. Maybe she went over the top.
Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one? I am from Britain, and I think it is right.
You're from Britain? Sorry to hear that. I'm sure you'll feel better soon.
that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions.
What's this? Is she seriously pushing the wage gap? Okay. I'm looking for a clip now, but I don't know what to play here. Yeah, anyway. All right. She still believes in the wage gap. Come on, YouTube. I haven't got all
About
day.
my own body. I think...
What? She wants to be a boss of her own body, right? Let me tell you something. Little secret. I'm a little bit biased on this one, of course, because I made it by the skin of my teeth. I was almost aborted. Long story, I can't give you details, but I was almost, by this much, I wouldn't have been here now. You would not have had the top G of Greece making this glorious video. A very funny video, by the way, very informative, very controversial. The higher something is on the truth scale, the more controversial it also is. This is the Ahrimanic age that we live in, ladies and gentlemen. I got this close to being aborted. So I have a bit stronger issues on, a bit stronger opinions on this one than the average person would. But let me tell you this. When you say my body, my choice, it's a falsehood. It's a false statement because it's not your body, because it's another human being, motherfucker. It is someone else. Okay, it's my child, but still, it's not. It's not. It's like, I mean, honestly, really, my answer to that is like,
Fuck you.
because it's murder. I mean, it nearly happened to me. So I don't know. It's not your body. Sorry. So that argument's out the window. It's not conservative or whatever. I'm just saying the truth. My body, I can just kill a person that's just about to be born. Because it's my body. Fucking look at him.
I think it is right that women be involved on my behalf in the policies and the decisions that will affect my life. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same
Pretty good actress, though, I must say.
respect as men. But sadly, I can say that there is no one country in the world where all women can expect to receive these rights. No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality. These rights...
You asked for it. I mean, what did she just say what I think she said?
What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you...
What?
What the fuck is he talking
How?
about? So what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about?
She's saying there's not a single country,
What the fuck is he talking about?
a single country on earth, a single one,
What the fuck are you talking about?
where feminism has accomplished its goals. Did you guys not hear like the first fucking 10 minutes of my rant? I was saying that like since the mid-70s it's been accomplished in the West, like in the Anglosphere, in the most satanically inverted realms that have ever existed in human history on this earth. Why? Where does she see this not being accomplished? I don't get it. Well, I do. It's the whole social constructionism thing I said before. Like just because there's not 50-50 representation in everything under the sun, to her, that is an indication that it has not been achieved yet. Not even in a single country. Not even in the most satanically inverted empire of all time. My own British Empire. Come on, YouTube. Hurry up.
I consider to be human rights, but I am one of the lucky ones. My life is a sheer privilege because my parents didn't love me less because I was born a daughter. My school did not limit me because I was a girl. My mentors didn't assume that I would go less far because I might give birth to a child one day. These influences
were
were the gender equality ambassadors that made me who I am today.
Okay, fair enough.
They may not know it, but they are the inadvertent feminists who are changing the world today. We need more of those. And if you still hate the word, it is not the word that is important. It's the idea and...
Newsflash, it's the ideology and it's the results that the ideology has gotten. It's what it's done, particularly to men and young boys, and also to women. I mean, the biggest losers from the biggest losers in this feminism game are women themselves. If you look at, I mean, I don't need to explain this further. Look at the stats, okay? All these single, unmarried women in mid-40s and stuff, cat ladies, they look back and they regret the BS that they were taught in the universities, all right? So it very much is man-hating. It's anti-family. It's anti-childbirth. I mean, they advocate for abortion. I mean, my body, my choice is an oxymoron. Yes, your body, your choice. But when it's a child, it's not your fucking body. It is someone else. When you're pregnant, it just so happens that there's two human beings inhabiting the same body for that time period. I'm not saying it's like from conception. Some people take it that do take it that far, all those religious types, but not, I mean, I don't know when we could say. Maybe you can possibly, I would accept abortion maybe in the first couple of months or whatever it is. You know, there's like a certain number they give, like that's a safe cutoff point, the first 2 or 3 months. But the way most of these people present it, it's like, oh, who cares? Even if it's 7 or 8 or 9 months, who gives a shit? It's my body. Really? What about the women that actually do give birth, and when there's no instance of abortion, it's a normal pregnancy and stuff, it's a wanted pregnancy, and they have the child, and then, you know, it's Ema Watson, and then there's a child, and she has a child, and it's whatever. It's like John Watson or whatever it is. Is that the same body then? Is it the same person? Is it not two people? Has she not just produced a new original human being that never existed before? So then how can you say that human being who actually came out of that womb, how can it be congruent? How can it make sense, that phrase, my body, my choice? It's a fucking new human being. It's not you. So, you know, it's satanically inverted because it's not true.
And the ambition behind it. Because not all women have received the same rights that I have. In fact, statistically, very few have been. In 1997...
Look, in the West, women have never been more privileged and free and, you know, full of benefits and this and that. Whatever. How can I put it? It's almost like the entire culture, man, education system, the governments, are just rolling out the red carpet for women ever since the day they're born. Okay, that's the West for you, at least for the past 50 years, roughly. That's how it's been. If you're born a woman, you're the most privileged person, in the West, a Western woman. Pretty much the most privileged person, most privileged class of people that have ever existed in history. And that is just a fact. I don't know what she's saying here, that, there's some of them that are not as privileged as I was, and unless she's talking about some something, women in the Middle East or something. But in the West, most privileged class that has ever existed in history. Women, Western women, all right?
Hillary Clinton made a famous speech in Beijing about women's rights. Sadly, many of the things that she wanted to change are still true today. But what stood out for me the most was that less than 30% of the audience were male. How can we affect change in the world when only half of it is invited or feel welcome to participate in the conversation? Men.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not.
Would like to take this opportunity to extend your formal invitation.
So all the male allies now are standing up and giving her a standing ovation, pretty much. Oh, it's unbelievable. These are the same men that made female voting possible and all these things that are leading the West into are leading the Western nations more and more into a Soviet-style statism. Okay, I mean, the majority of the problems that we see in the US today in the culture war, it's because there's a bigger and bigger demographic that keeps voting left. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm not, I know about all this Hegelian dialectic thing and whatever. FYI, I've never voted in my life, and in Orwellian Australia, you actually get fined for not voting. You have no right to just say, I don't want to vote. So that's how fucked up that place is. That's one of an endless list of things that makes it the worst thing, place that's ever existed in human history. So I have never voted, even though you would get fined there for not doing so, because it's so obscenely fucked up, that country. There's no democracy there or freedom of speech or anything. So, or culture, or intellect, vocabulary, nothing. So, art, their comedy is just atrocious. The list never ends. Cuisine, what cuisine? Pies. So anyway, it's terrible. But I never voted there, even though the state forced you to do so. Otherwise, they fined you. I found ways to not pay the fine. I found loopholes to not pay them. I haven't even voted in Greece. I've been back in the best country on earth for about 4 years now. I managed not to vote last time that I had to vote because I couldn't make it to the voting booths for some reason. My car had broken down or something, so I had a reason. So I've never voted. So I'm not one of those left-right people. I mean, I'm a massive Trump fan because he transcends. He's more like a 5D person. It's not the typical third-dimensional right versus left. Some people think so, and they're like, "Oh, you became a statist," and a lot of these stupid anarchists on Facebook blocked me back when I became a massive Trump fan when he first won. But the whole left-right divide is a bit, not silly, but we can't get too caught up in it. But what I will say is that the right is yang and the left is yin. So what the best way to run a society is for it to be, for the most part, capitalistic. It's more like a 70-30 mix, like of capitalist and right-leaning policies, and have about a 25-30% socialist element to it, a component there as well, which would account for having a safety net, social safety net, and I know the Americans are going to hate this next part, like free healthcare, because unfortunately I've lived a big chunk of my life in Australia, which is like the UK with their free healthcare, the Medicare. But at least affordable healthcare, like to not be as problematic as it is in the US now. Like you basically, if you've got no money and you get sick, you're fucked there, you die. So that's a little bit extreme. But the way they have it in the UK and Australia and Canada, that's like the other extreme of it. That's like too socialist with the healthcare. But some middle ground with that. So that will be the ideal system, right? So basically like right leaning, like conservative right leaning, like in the fiscal policies primarily, this whole Reaganomics trickle down thing where you don't actually tax the rich people, exorbitantly tax the rich people. Why, why? Why would you do that? Like taxing, like the people that make more money get taxed more. You should tax them less, because the more you tax them, the less they'll want to work, and they're like producing the bulk of the stuff, so why would you penalize production? Okay, so that's completely idiotic. That's why socialism is BS. But if you keep it to a minimum and you have mostly, and like I said, particularly on the fiscal side of things, conservative policies, society can function quite well. You need the socialism element of it, but if it goes too far, so what's happening now in the West, in America and so on, in the rest of the Anglosphere, in the UK and the Commonwealth nations, they're completely fucked. They are the worst places ever because the socialist element has gone too far, and it's at a point of no return almost, and it's like pretty much approaching what George Orwell warned us of decades ago, right? But America is still okay, but it's getting there. Like its destruction is coming, its fall is coming, because more and more people are voting in these leftist policies, right? So you can't have like a 50-50 or 60-40 leftism versus right. Like I said, the right, the conservative policies have to be around 3/4, and the rest, 25-30%, can be of a socialist bent, but no more than that. If it starts becoming more than that, then that's where the society starts approaching Stalin, all right, the USSR. So that's not good for anyone. I said all that to end up to this point. Women's voting patterns traditionally are just overwhelmingly leftist, okay? So if they don't have like a husband or boyfriend or father or something to convince them to vote conservative, we're in big trouble. I'm not saying take away like Pearl Davis is like she even printed those T-shirts that she's selling saying women shouldn't vote and all that. That's extreme, but we can't even change that anyway. I don't have a time machine. I haven't built that yet. I'm close though. I'm working on it. I'll update you. I'll be updating you guys through email. But when I do get the time machine, maybe I can go back and change that one. But it's a bit silly to try to. But the point is, this is a reality, and if society is overwhelmingly socialist, it does crumble and it becomes Stalinism. So what we've got to do is inject more conservative / yang / masculine thinking. Masculine thinking meaning not patriarchy, but like I said, fiscal conservatism, Reaganomics, all that stuff. That stuff is fantastic. If it does not completely overshadow and overpower the society, to the point where there are no socialist, safety nets at all, people just dying on the street just because they haven't got the $1,000 to go and do an operation or something. Well, that's pretty bad. It's like the hospital saying, "Oh, well, sorry, we can't accept you. It's $1,000." But I haven't. Well, that's all right. Sorry, fuck you. You just have to die then. That's too much. But if it gets to the point where like people, the majority of people, or a big majority of the people, are on the dole and they don't want to work because you get $250 a week on the dole and $300 a week if you work full time. It's like, why would I work 40 hours just to get an extra $50? See what I'm saying? I didn't just make that up. I worked Uber in 2017 for that year, and maybe a third of the people that went through the Uber were like travelers. This was in Melbourne. It was like people that were tourists and stuff from Europe. I'm like, what? There was a French guy, or I think it was two of them in the car, I don't remember. I'm like, you're from France? Why would you come to Melbourne for? It's you know what I mean? It's like going from New York to some backwater place in the middle of America where there's nothing. Like, what the fuck are you going to see here? You've got the Eiffel Tower. You've got one of the best cities in Europe. And they're like, oh man, it is not as good as you think, you know. And then he was explaining to me that basically it's become too leftist over there, the policies, and basically people don't want to work, everyone's on the dole. I'm like, but this is France. I mean, it's one of the most powerful economies. He's like, no. And he basically told me that same thing. He was a young guy, like early 20s, I think. And he said, look, we came here for work and stuff, like a working holiday, because it's literally what I said before. Like the dole is like, let's say an arbitrary number, $200. And if you go work full time, you might get 250 or whatever. So it's like there's no point working. So it's completely useless. I mean, if we got double the amount, or maybe 80% as much, 180%, as in, the dole is 200 and maybe you get 350 if you work full time. It's almost double. So you're like, okay. And it's good to work anyway. I mean, you need to work. It's not good to just do nothing at all for long periods of time. So, but it has to be worth it. You can't just marginally get just a little bit over what you would have gotten on the dole anyway. So this extreme socialism thing makes people lazier, it makes them less productive, makes them less, like their ingenuity just goes down. And, so like over time, as decades pass, less inventions, less businesses being created and stuff like that, the things that made countries like America great, they take a hit, and then you start seeing less innovations and so on, and the country then just crumbles. It becomes something like Australia or Canada, where if you look on the internet, like the number of inventions per capita in the US versus Australia, it's just abysmally low. It's like not even 10%, the equivalency, like even less. Per capita, I mean, I know that Australia has got a much lower population, but per person, so the percentage-wise, so out of 100 people in America, like 20 of them will invent, or 10 of them will invent amazing things. In Australia, it's like only 1 in 1,000, because they got the tall poppy syndrome there, where like when someone is successful, the NPC blue pill loser assholes feel like they have a moral. They think that they have to, like it's like their mission in life to put people down who are successful. So if a country is founded on such a premise, then it's fucked. It's never going to work. It's never going to it won't even come close to the success that America has reached, Anyway, but this is a very long-winded way of me saying that the whole feminism, socialism, communism thing, in the long run, it might look good on paper, but in the long run, what it does is it brings societies down. I mean, it's good in small doses, but to get it to the point where she's trying to get all these blue-pilled male allies in the room applauding and saying, yeah, we want to be part of this as well. They don't know. They know not what they do, these men. Okay, and I do not forgive them for not knowing what they do, because by not knowing what they do, they're going to take everyone else down with them, like lemmings off a cliff. So, these people are no good, these men, because they do. It's like, what the hell? My thing is falling here. These guys, it's like,
What the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck?
like they not understand even half of the things I'm trying to explain here? I don't get that. I cannot see how they don't see even some of the things I'm trying to bring across here. Okay. Look at them recording. But I mean, it's the UN, so it's like a filtration
Gender
system.
equality is your issue too. Because to date,
The UN is like a filtration system to weed out the most red-pilled people and most masculine men, and only like it gathers like the most blue-pilled, low testosterone, most socialist, most communist, most feminist-minded men. Women, of course, they naturally gravitate to those ideas because those ideas are of a yin predisposition, but of a yin quality. But it's a filtration system that just like a vacuum that sucks into it just only the men that would agree with these communist, feminist type of ideas. That's why they're all applauding. And then the world watches this and they're like, oh, if the UN says it, it must be real. This is not indicative of the majority of the population.
I've seen my father's role as a parent being valued less by society, despite my needing his presence as a child as much as my mother's.
So she's saying positive stuff about
I've
men
seen
now.
young men suffering from mental illness.
But I bet there's going to be a bait and switch. There's going to be a twist at the end. Like in the... like in the Agatha Christie novels. Like, let's see. Because I don't remember, but I vaguely remember that there's a twist. Like she turns it into like a feminine emotional argument thing, like that the men should be more in touch with their feelings. We'll see. Come on,
unable to ask for help, for fear it would make them less of a man.
There you go.
Or less of a man.
There you go.
In fact, in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men between 20 to 49, eclipsing road accidents, cancer, and coronary heart disease. I've seen men made fragile and insecure by a distorted sense of what constitutes male success.
It's good that she acknowledges that, of the self-deletion of rates of men. But then her explanation, so she gets a ding there, but like her explanation, she's trying to say that, like, so they say, people like her, the feminists like that have her view, similar worldview, they always say, oh, men become allies, and you know, this is also affecting men, and don't think I just care about women's plight. It's also the men, because self-deletion rates and blah blah blah. And then it's the plot twist in the end. It's like, oh, but you know, the reason that this happens to men is because they're too afraid to act like women, and that's first lie, not lie, but she's not. It's not like she's doing it on purpose. She's just duped by this false philosophy, but ideology. So that's the first mistake. The first mistake is, like I tried to explain at length at the beginning of the video, it's the innate masculine nature, the male nature, to be that way. It's not like, oh, they told me that men don't cry. No, we're just not inclined to be as emotional as women, that's all. And of course it's been further reinforced, so there's a small element of social constructionism to it, but it's not tabula rasa. It's not what's, for those who don't know, blank slate. That's blank slate in Latin. It's not a blank slate. It's not. We're just overwhelmingly, it's a genetic thing. This is the problem. I was gonna use the remote to start it again. Okay. Oh, this is for me.
You dumb motherfucker!
So, yeah, it's not blank slate. We are genetically wired to not want to cry and share our feelings. It's not social construct, but she's trying to say it is.
Men don't have the benefits of equality either.
Yeah.
You don't often talk about men being imprisoned by...
So they try to, she tries to present it as in, oh, men also are suffering from this because this social construct, this patriarchal social construct, has made it so that you are not allowed to think emotionally like women do. We're not fucking hardwired to be like that in the first place. What don't you understand? All right?
gender stereotypes. But I can see that they
What
are,
is so hard to understand? That
and that
this
when they are
is not-
free, things will change for women as a natural consequence.
So she said that. Maybe you didn't hear it over Chris Tucker yelling there at Jackie Chan, but it was. She's like, men are imprisoned by this ideal, this patriarchal thing as well. So when they are freed, it's gonna be better for women as well. So it's always like, it's like, oh men, you have it bad as well. Let me help you. Become free from the patriarchal, from that little patriarchal box, that stereotypical male behavior that we've been conditioned into, the boys, so that we can eventually, so then the ending of the movie will be so that women can benefit from it. So it's always in the end like trying to figure out ways of how to get even more benefits for women. It's like the fact that men have got problems under this system as well. We are oppressed under this system as well, and we must be freed from the patriarchal matrix. That's just ancillary, that's just secondary. The only reason that you're actually helping the men is so that in so doing the women will be elevated even more. So if that wasn't the case, like if you helped men and it didn't benefit women, she wouldn't really even probably mention it. She wouldn't care. But when she says it clearly, so you can be freed. So then when you do, women are going to benefit.
If men don't have to be aggressive in order to be accepted, women won't feel compelled to be submissive.
No. If men are not aggressive, men are not compelled to be aggressive, then women will not be forced to be submissive. Like again, the social construction, this entire house of cards of feminism, communism, all those isms. It's social constructionism all the way down, man. It's like the entire thing is just made up. They think that, no, Emma Watson and all the Emma Watsons of the world, men are more aggressive genetically. We're wired that way, and women are more. I mean, don't these people haven't they not read, or like, are they not aware of the existence of the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? It was only like 20 or 30 years ago where that was like a best-selling book, and it was promoted on Oprah and all that stuff. I was aware of it. I almost read it actually. I don't know. Maybe I've read bits of it or something. It was all over the bookstores and everything. Okay, back then when we didn't have Amazon and ebooks and it was all print books, it was everywhere. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. How do they not know this? Like, if men were not conditioned to be aggressive, then women would not be forced to be submissive because of that. No, men are more aggressive. Look at the biology. Why do we have almost 20 times the amount of testosterone? On average, roughly speaking. Why? Think about that. All right. So the biology itself proves it. So I don't know what she's talking about. It's not a social construct, my friends. It's not the patriarchy. It's just life.
If men don't have to control, women won't have to be controlled.
There you go.
Both men and women should feel free to be sensitive. Both men and women should feel free to be strong. It is time that we all perceive gender on a spectrum.
There we go.
Instead of two sets.
I've watched this before, obviously, but I didn't even remember that she said spectrum. I was just going to say it before she did. I was going to say, here we go. She's going to start saying about the spectrum, that everything's a spectrum now. And she just says it a few seconds later. This is like a social constructionist satanic inversion all the way down. Like the core of it, the entire basis of this ideology is just completely made up. That's why I and others like me call it satanically inverted. It's not like, you're saying this is about the freedom and emancipation of women. How can you call it satanic, you patriarch? No, it's just the ideology itself is satanically inverted, and not in a religious way. Just, let's say, in a metaphysical way. Let's call it Ahrimanic, okay? let's use the Zoroastrian term for the dark one, okay, Ahrimanic. It's because it's an inversion of reality. I mean, all these things that she's complaining about are, how many times do I have to say it? Do I have to play Chris Tucker again? How many times do I have to say it's not socially constructed? Men are a certain way and women are a certain way, and studies have shown it to be so. The study I mentioned at the start with the apes, whatever they were, primates, but they're not apes. Come on, Chris Tucker. What is it?
Do you understand the words that are coming out
What is so hard for people to understand? This is reality. There is an element of social constructionism to it, yes, but it is way less than the genetic factor, which they want to eliminate completely. I mean, if she said, if Emma Watson and other Emma Watsons of the world would come out and say, look, guys, I understand there's a genetic element to it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, blah, blah, blah. But I want to combat the social constructionist element of it. And I think it's a bit too much. Constantly telling boys men don't cry and blah, blah, blah. And like reinforcing the fact that they're more visual in sexuality and, telling them to, applauding them for like woof whistling and, for just objectifying women and stuff. Yes, I could see that argument because it's like, okay, it is genetically wired in us, but let's say there's like a 20% element of social constructivism to it. Vice versa with the women as well. So, women should be this, should be that. I can see kind of what some of these types are saying when they say, well, if a man wants to be sensitive, I mean, it is a spectrum in a way, in a sense that not every single man, like not 100% of men are super alpha. There are some betas that are more emotional, that are more yin in nature. And on the other hand, it's the same with women, like the tomboy types and so on, that are like a chick that just is interested in like hanging out with guys more and, playing rugby and like playing rugby. I've never lived in America, but I speak as if I have like rugby. Anyway, I wish I could I wish I was like a dual Greek American citizen. Dual citizen of the number 1 best country and the number 2 best country on earth. How good would that be? So that was grammatically incorrect. I should have said the best country in the world and the second best. Anyway, so yeah, the tomboy types, right? And you got the more sensitive males. So that happens, of course, but it's a smaller percentage. The norm is usually, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So on average, it works out that way. If she said that, but these types, they seem to be thinking like the way they present their whole arguments and speeches and whatever, books, interviews, whatever they do, podcasts, it's almost as if they think it's exclusively 100% social constructivism. That's where they err, okay? That's where it's no. It's just no. That's when it's like...
Wrong.
Okay? Mr. Mr. Super Duper masculine Republican there told us it's wrong, because it is. Shit, 1.5 hours video. Some mother...
of opposing ideals.
Yep, applaud them. The SEALs are applauding.
If we stop defining each other by what we are not and start defining ourselves by who we are, we can all be freer. And this is what he for she is about. It's about freedom. I want men to take up this mantle so that their daughters, sisters, and mothers can be free from prejudice.
They already
but
are.
Also so that their sons have permission to be vulnerable and
All right, okay, I've had enough. My head hurts, and this is like the mother of reaction videos. 1.5 hours for a 10-minute video, but I mean there was a lot of material to go through. Jesus, no, I've had enough. we need to stop. That's it. There's like a couple of minutes left and she just, whatever. I don't know what she says. I don't care. But we went through the bulk of it, and I think my points came across pretty strongly and eloquently, if not, there were a few curse words, but with me, we can't avoid that. It's just social constructionism all the way, man. Like they're not. She was saying there in the end, so we can all be free, so women are not prejudiced against, and men can be free to be more sensitive or whatever it was. I don't want to be more sensitive. Maybe, like I said before, I can cede a little bit of ground. I can say, okay, maybe 20% of the whole thing that we're complaining about might be social constructionism, okay? But the entire thing is not a social construct. It's just not. There's been so many studies, particularly the one I mentioned in the beginning. Like I said, I'm mentioning it for the 100th time now, but it's important. I might be a good little boy and actually link it underneath in the description box. I usually don't, because I'm like, do you not have Google? People who are interested will look it up themselves, but I might be a good boy this time and actually I might link it underneath for those blue pill people that couldn't be bothered typing something in Google for 3 seconds to find it themselves. But it's just unbelievable that people just do not want to see the fact that men and women are different and they are born that way. They're not made. Of course, the social construct, because I'm a fair person and I'm not an absolutist, so there's always elements of truth to both sides of the argument. But she and her kind are the ones, I mean her kind, I don't mean women, I mean even the male feminists that spout similar things that she does. They just don't want to see the facts, They don't want to see that there's a very strong genetic element to this, and they just deny it. It's basically denial of reality, denial of objective reality. This is why I and others like me are against these types of speeches and things and whatever, and against this ideology, period. It's because it does not, it's very simple. It just does not conform with objective reality. It just not conform. Is it with or to? Whatever. It does not conform to objective reality. I don't know if it's to or with. If I got it wrong, please tell me in the comments. My bad. Very hard on myself. It's true, but that's the thing. It's not a social. It's not a social construct all the way down. They think it is, so that's where they get it wrong. So the only reason people that people are against this, I'll rephrase that. The only reason that people who are against this stuff, the only reason we do it is because simply it is against the objective reality that we see with our own eyes and ears. How is that hateful or controversial or anything like that? We're just saying, listen, dude, the wall is blue. Well, the wall across me now that I'm seeing is like a denim blue, same as this one, all right? So it's just blue. The person will be like, yes, but you can't be really sure and your eyes might be deceived. Motherfucker, it's blue. Period, the end. Now get the hell out, If you keep this up, we're going to have an argument. This will not end well. It's blue. All right? Imagine having like a employee. You're trying to tell them something. It's like, look, this is how it is. This is how it works. Like construction. Okay? So okay, we have to pour the cement in this way and blah, blah, blah. We have to do certain things structurally. Otherwise, simply the building or the bridge will fucking fall. Period. Yes, but social construct, and if they start you with a social constructionist shit, basically trying to change the law, the rules of what needs to be done in order for a bridge or a building to not fall down, for the building to not collapse and kill people, what would you do? You'd have to fire them, isn't it? All right, so same with friendships or romantic relationships and stuff. You can't, like, at some point, you're going to either argue, you're going to have a serious argument with such a person, and eventually cut all contact or whatever. Like I said, if it's an employee or a business partner, you'll have to sever that contract. So it's just tearing society apart, because it's like two camps, basically. Broadly speaking, it's two camps. It's the people who accept objective reality and people who don't. It's not right, left. But it's just that lately, in the past decade or so, the right in the Western world, I mean Greece here, it might be a bit different, but like, because I mostly follow the American happenings and stuff, and like in America, it's just the case that in recent years, the political right has been the side that's more logical and sober. They see reality. I'm not saying like the redneck types, the religious right. I'm talking about the intellectual types, the non-religious ones, not the Bible Belt. I don't resonate with those types. I resonate with the Bible Belt types about as much as I do with the extreme leftist types. Neither of them interest me, but I'm talking about the intelligent, educated, hard-working person that leans more right, right libertarian type of thing, centre right. That would be the person that would be more logical these days and have a more yang mindset, i.e., what you see is what it is. All right? Like I said before, the wall is blue, motherfucker. End of story. Don't start me with maybe, and because our eye, it's not really, you're not really seeing, because it just decodes the beam that, like, your eye hits it and then it comes back and then it decodes it and it does a thing in the brain, and then blah 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 blah, and then it makes you think it's a certain way, but it's not, and by the way, didn't you know that it's actually a hologram, so it's not even real to begin with? So what is blue, Neo? So if, like, sometimes you just got to cut the shit and say, look, dude, cut the crap, or do that, which would be probably the more frequent occurrence, because women are more subjectivist in thinking than men are. So it's like, yes, but my feelings, but I think, but but it's not real, but it's a social construct. In the end, they're going to say, listen, in the end, they're going to start telling us that gravity itself is a fucking social construct. Mark my words, you're going to see this, like, it's never going to happen, because then you're going to say, well, all right, wise guy, jump off a cliff and show me. But we might get to the point where there will be steps made. Some bullshitter will come up with some theory in academia, of course, some humanities professor come up with some shit that's like, oh, gravity is this and that. No, motherfucker. Gravity, just jump off a cliff or jump out of a plane without a parachute, and I will show you how real gravity is. So there are certain things that are just, they are what they are. Like I said, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Every man and his dog knows this, especially the people of a higher IQ that are smart enough to understand occultism and spirituality. They especially understand this, because they know that this biological man and woman thing that we inhabit, that's just a lower level expression, like a material expression of something higher, of a higher vibration, of like Mother Goddess and Father God, the cosmic yin and yang, let's say. All right, so these are eternal energies. It's like the principle of polarity, the law of polarity, if you look at the 7 Hermetic laws, right, in the book, the Kybalion. So these things are real. So the social constructionist assholes, the neo-Marxist predisposition, are trying to come along and say nothing exists, blah, blah, blah. Everything's a spectrum, everything, you know. All right, there is a spectrum, but it's not... If we take it so far where it gets to the point where we don't even know what is real anymore, and anyone can be anything, anywhere, at any time, for any reason, without any accountability, and without anybody being able to question them on it. It's like, wait a minute, Emma Watson, what about this, this, and that? What about these stats? What about the study that I've mentioned 100 times in this video now with the primates, that definitively proves that men are from Mars and women are from Venus? So they do all that stuff, this completely subjectivist ideology and way of viewing the world and behavior. And then to top it off, the cherry on top is that, like, if you confront them with the facts, instead of them saying, okay, let me look at it and I'll get back to you, I'll sleep on it. No, they don't do that. They just attack you and they call you various names, and then you can even be cancelled and lose your livelihood and whatever, and just be slandered for no reason. Look what Jordan Peterson and others like him have gone through. Like, he hasn't said one thing, in my opinion, that's demeaning or what's the word? Destructive. Okay, he's always saying positive things. He's always helping people. His words, you know, he speaks words of power. 99% of the time, people are coming up to him on the street saying, "Man, you helped me so much. I changed my life around." Blah blah. So this is the problem here. We're dealing with an ideology that is not rooted in objective reality. So therein the problem starts. It's like that's the root of the trouble there. Okay. You know, but the amazing thing is that you can't even talk about it. Like I said a minute ago, if you could confront them and say, look, but what about this study? But what about this? Or what, you know, especially what about the metaphysical principles that are behind all this? The difference between men and women, you know, it's like these are real cosmic forces that we have to contend with, and they're as real as gravity, and you can't just say, oh, you know, Jacques Derrida and all these deconstructionists, they just say these things don't exist. I don't give a shit what they say. I care about what I see, what what reality shows me, you know. It's like, really, the best thing you can say to these people, Arnie here encapsulates it in one phrase. Come on, take it away, Big Arnie.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
That's it. I mean, it's BS. It is BS. The whole lot of it, from top to bottom. You know, on a final note, the social constructionist element to it is just minimal, because we cannot be absolutist and can't say that, oh, it's only genetic. No, that would be like too... Then I would start ranting for another fucking hour about how much I hate scientism and people that are just stuck on whatever they can see with their five senses, and then nothing else exists beyond that. I mean, that's a level of retardation that's like, I don't know. I don't even think I have a clip for it here that could describe how bad that is. But if you take it the other side of the spectrum, like to say that everything is a social construct and the genetics don't play a role at all, like literally at all, that's insane. Because then why would, you know, how is she even saying that she's a woman? You know, I am a woman and I this. So if you're a woman, that means that by default you are accepting that at least the genetic part, the biological part, is in large part true, because otherwise you wouldn't have been saying I'm a woman and talking about women and men and women versus men, patriarchy versus this versus that. You would have just been saying, oh, it's all, you know, I'm a human, we are people kind, you know. So they do, at least some part of their brain acknowledges that there's such a thing as women and men and women. But it needs to acknowledge it even more and understand that the genetic differences are very, very strong. Like the genetic element is much more important than fake education and fake news. tries to convince us that they are, okay? Tries to tell us that they are, because, that's why I said, I mean, Arnie said it before. It's like, don't bullshit me, like, this is BS. And I'm not here being, I'm just part of the patriarchy that wants to, just a guy who wants to perpetuate the enslavement of women. What enslavement? Men have got it worse these days. Okay, nobody can come and say, nobody in their right mind can come and say with a straight face, women are still oppressed in the West. I mean, she said it before, like, there's not one single country on earth where the goals of feminism have been properly reached. That is absurd to say that, okay? As a matter of fact, in the past couple of decades, the men and the boys are more and more being disadvantaged with each passing year, okay? But of course, she doesn't see this. Granted, this speech was about 10 years ago, but even back then it was really bad for boys and men. But especially now, today, at the time of this recording, which is late December 2023. What is it? 30th. Okay? So it's almost New Year's. Men are disadvantaged in the West. Okay? But the feminists don't see it, the hardcore feminists anyway, because, no fault of their own, I guess. I mean, each gender sees their side, their point of view. I mean, their lived experience, I guess, that word. I had to use it. I was anxious. I was waiting to use that word in an example at some point. So there you go. I used one of my most hated phrases, lived experience. But it's their lived experience that they're seeing. And men's also. I'm sure there are things about women's life, a day in the life of a woman, that 99.99 or 100% of men don't understand. Like, I will never understand how it is to get a period. My period. I never. And every time I've had that discussion with women, I'm like, please, like with a girlfriend or something, I'm like, please stop. I can't. I don't want to hear that. I'm getting nauseous. I can't. I'm just sorry, but I can't. Don't you know that men don't want to? We just get uncomfortable having those conversations. It's just like that. There's certain fundamental differences where, which make it that we often misunderstand each other, and there's certain things, and depending on what the thing is, it may be harder and harder for the other gender to understand. Like I said, I gave the extreme example of the period. Like, no man will ever understand that, because we haven't got the anatomy for it. It's like, unless we were born a woman, I wouldn't know what that is. I mean, bleeding, it's like, I can't. It's impossible to understand it. So that's just an extreme example, because I've always had that during my life. I'm like, I could never understand that. How could that be? Blah, blah, blah. And you hear women, friends, relatives, female cousins, whatever, girlfriends telling you about it, and you're like, what? Is that how that is? And mostly we don't want to hear it, because men get disgusted with that particular conversation. But it's the same with women, but with both. Like, with women would not understand, for example, the fact that men actually must become, as opposed to women who just are. They've just got magical value. They magically have value just because they're women, because they've got the womb, you see. But men have to work up to eventually be valuable and respected and everything. It's not guaranteed at birth. Women are guaranteed, come in with guaranteed value from 0 to approximately 40, when it starts slowly declining after that. And men come with no value, but with a potential to become super duper. But it's only a potential, and you have to work on it. To me, it's a beautiful thing, that, because if you do work on it, you can do it. But if you're a woman that's born, with low intellect or not good looking and stuff, those are the cards you've been dealt, and you can't really work up to increasing that, your value on the beauty scale that I mentioned before. So that element of manhood, women never. I have found through conversations and through online things that I look at, I have found that that's the thing that women misunderstand about men the most. It's the equivalent to how men can't understand how it is to have a period. They just don't get it. They think that men magically have got privilege just because they're men, and it's completely the reverse of that. So that's because they look at like the top men, they look at the Elon Musks, and they're like, oh, it's a patriarchy. Because Musk magically stole all his wealth and stuff by oppressing women. It's insane. Or he's keeping women down in his company like glass ceiling. None of it is real. At least not in this day and age, certainly not. But yes, because these things exist and because they're so different, there's always going to be a point of view, the feminine point of view and the masculine point of view, and women are not always going to understand men's male plight, the masculine plight, and vice versa. But the trouble though with this is that men, even in the patriarchy in the days of old, women were a protected class. We were always hardwired to protect them, to give them a soft, cushy life. Oh, you don't have to work. I'll go and do all that. I'll be the breadwinner. You just stay at home, barefoot in the kitchen and cook. Granted, they didn't, like Spider-Man's uncle wisely said, women do not have as many privileges as men because they did not have the same amount of responsibilities either. Okay, they were not forced to be the breadwinners, So if you've got to go out and do the hard stuff that guarantees the family's survival, obviously it's fair that you have more of a say, as you have the final say on like the macro decision making when it comes to the family decisions, right? Because if the man's out there making all the money and stuff and winning the bread, where do you win bread? How do you win bread, by the way? I need to make a video about that one. That's started me on a different rabbit hole now. So if you're doing the bread winning, you're going to have more responsibilities and you've got to have more authority over the household. It's just how it is. So that's how it was back in the day. So even then, when they had less privileges, they were a protected class always. So whether it's under patriarchy or under this strange matriarchy that we have now, which is kind of like patriarchy, but more and more turning into a matriarchy. But this matriarchy, which is, she's like Ema Watson is a big representative of, mascot of, seems to believe that there's no matriarchy and it hasn't been achieved yet, and that there's this patriarchy all around us, whereas in reality it's actually a matriarchy in the past couple of decades at least, but she can't see that it's such. Oh my God. Whatever we can call this system, whatever it is that I just said there, label it, I don't know, as what? Clown world? Probably is the best description. Satanically inverted communist society, I don't know. So even in that scenario, women again are on top. So even under the oppressive patriarchy, they lived cushy lives, and now they want even more than they had back then. I mean, granted, they do more work now. Like they have to go out, and contend with the elements, and go and play the male game, like the game as it's depicted in Highlander. There can be only one. Like they have to play the meritocratic pyramidal competence hierarchy game, and they don't like that. So they're like, give me more free stuff, government. There's a glass ceiling. There's a wage gap. All that stuff, which both of these things, they don't exist. Okay, there's no glass ceiling. There's no wage gap. I'm not even going to bother to get into why. I mean, people are smart enough. They've got smartphones and Wi-Fi. They can fucking Google it to see why these things don't actually exist nowadays. So the problem, though, is that this ideology is designed in a way where, even though the goals its original goals have been achieved for many decades now already. It goes by the premise that they have not been achieved, and it can never be enough. Like she astonishingly, bizarrely said before in the videos, like, oh, how can you say not a single country has achieved the goals of feminism? How can you say that? I don't understand. See, and that's why I revert always back to the thing I said a few minutes ago. It's like the only explanation has to be that this is like the feminine equivalent of me and all other men not really having an idea how it is to have a period. It's like, imagine being a fly on the wall and listening to a bunch of women talk about their periods. Like, a man would be like, first of all, he'd be horrified and he'll feel nauseous, but then secondly, he'll be like, the fuck are they, I don't know, I have no idea what they're saying, like, because I've never, you know what I mean? It's like almost like a different species, like completely different sex organs, so it's a different thing. So what she's doing here, and a lot of feminist women like her, that's the female equivalent, where they have no idea about the masculine experience. They don't understand how hard it truly is to be a man, like to do all the work that it requires to rise up in the hierarchy and to get status, to even get to the point to even get a girlfriend in the first place, your first girlfriend ever, let alone becoming a super high value man, like an Andrew Tate type of character, James Bond, whatever. That's like such a tiny percentage of men ever make it. They actually make it up to that level, But that's, these are the only men that they look at, okay, the feminists, and they're like, oh, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, oh my God, Donald Trump. No, I'm surrounded by patriarchy everywhere. Well, fucking patriarchy. What about the bottom 99% of men that are below those guys? They struggle far more than women, and always have, not just now. Now it's just even worse, because masculinity is demonized to top it all off. It's so hard to be a man, like in the beginning, in like the first half of your life. You have to make it. You don't just magically get privilege. You have to work for it. You don't get value up front. And it was always like that throughout all history. But now we have the added benefit of masculinity being demonized 24/7. So this is why there's such a high self-deletion rate and so on. So even that, she doesn't understand that the self-deletion rate exists because of her ideology being pushed in society. So, and she presents feminism as a solution to, it will reduce the self-deletion rate of men, when feminism is what has probably been the single biggest contributing factor, because demonization of masculinity, of boys and men, you're unworthy, even something as innocuous and infinitely awesome as being ambitious and, success conscious, is supposed to be toxic these days for some fucked up reason that I know not of. All this stuff. Men growing up in a society like that is so toxic for young boys and men, and teenage boys, whatever, young adults in their 20s. It's so fucking toxic to grow up in an environment like that. But that's, again, like I said, that is the male lived experience. A woman would never understand that. She's going to explain that in womanese. She's going to say, oh, what she said here before. Oh, it's because the patriarchy has conditioned them for billions of years to not be women. It's because they're not women to begin with. Didn't you get that memo? So, they don't get that it's the feminist, the injection, the overabundance of the feminist ideology and worldview in schools. It starts from primary school and it continues through high school and so on. So by the time men are like, teenagers or whatever, young adults, when they're in their early 20s, when they go to college, the brainwashing is complete by then. And they're like, they're feeling like they're cowering, and they're like, oh, I can't, any masculine trait I exhibit, even the highly positive ones, which, let me tell you, 90% of masculine traits are highly positive, unbelievably positive. Heroism, selflessness, work ethic, honor, valor, all these things that you see like in the movies, like where there's this valiant knight that wants to take on the world, or slay the dragon, all those things that women are actually attracted to. These are the kind of things that women fall in love with men. It's not only visual. It's like, oh, I want a handsome man, a handsome prince, the white knight on a horse, but they want also, they're attracted to these beautiful traits that men have that are highly, highly beneficent. They really are. And even those traits have been highly demonized, and it's a plot. It's obviously an agenda that someone's doing, right? So they can drive a wedge between men and women and destabilize and destroy society. But the people that have drank this Kool-Aid that this young lady has here, they don't, and especially if they are women, their lived experience does not, as a female, does not understand. They don't understand how it is to be a man. So they're like, oh, so they see it from their own lens, and it's like, oh, so it must be that the self-deletion in men has increased in the past few years because the patriarchy doesn't let them be women. Like I yelled before, as you saw, I got really angry and said, no, it's because they're not fucking women. Don't you get it? See, social constructionism, it ruins everything. That's the root cause of all this trouble. Rollo is right about that, So that's the thing, and they don't like. So what she's basically doing is she's trying to prescribe more of the thing that actually is the number one reason that men are self-deleting in higher numbers than ever before. It's just like, my brain, I can't understand, I can't figure it out. Oh, maybe it's because they're not women, maybe it's because they don't behave in a feminine way as much. They should be more feminine. That should fix it. No, that will make him self-delete even more. Trust me. I'm a man, I know. I'm not being facetious, now I'm being very serious. I know the period thing is a topic that men don't want to discuss, and it's just a private thing with women as well. But I got to say it. It's almost like you trying to expect me to understand what you're going through when you have your period every month, until you get the menopause. If it's a woman watching, or if it was Emma Watson, if I was addressing Emma Watson. Just like I'm never going to understand what you go through when you have your period, as much as you may explain it to me, as much as whatever. In the same way, you will never understand the masculine experience, the male, sorry, not masculine, because that masculine is an energy, it's a mindset, the male experience, okay? And because of this, women in general will never understand, will never know what to prescribe to men. And if we try to fix men as if they were women, like, what is it, does it Rollo again that says that we treat, is it, I don't know if it's his line or if he's got it from someone else, but I heard it from him. We treat men and boys today like as if they are defective women. That's so true. You cannot, it's like me having a problem with, I don't know, some male problem with my package. And a feminist coming up to me and saying, listen, you've got to buy this tampon and do this, this and that. See how absurd, how funny that sounds? That's why I had to use the period example, because it's very in your face. It's one of the main differentiating factors between men and women, like when they're upon reaching puberty. Okay? So there's no way that the majority of women can understand the male experience. Like, this is why you get the Jordan Petersons, the Andrew Tates of the world rising up, and women lose their shit. Particularly the ones that have the worldview of Miss Emma Watson here, they lose their shit. And what their comment on that, on figures like Peterson and Tate, etc. Their comment is something along the lines of different variations of this theme, which is, misogyny there's an uptick of misogyny lately. It's on the rise again. And then you see all these YouTube videos and stuff of these feminist women talking about Andrew Tate, Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, and I can't. I want to comment on some of these, but I can't. I was watching one earlier, but I couldn't get through it. I watched only 30 seconds and I stopped. Couldn't handle it. This woman was saying something like, "Oh, because Matt Walsh, he couldn't he had a bad experience at Disneyland when he was a kid, or he couldn't go to Disneyland or something, and now suddenly he hates trans people." And I just stopped. I stopped watching. I couldn't handle it. I'm like, there's actual human beings, content creators that actually believe this. Like, this is her understand. Matt Walsh has explained it 1,000 times that the reason he is, doing these, he made that documentary, What is a Woman, and all this stuff. The only reason he's fighting against this stuff is, like he said clearly, if there was because he said it's an attack on truth. I don't care about what they're doing. He said I would have been equally against a square is circle movement. I made up that term now, but what he's trying to say is that if people were coming out and saying that a square is a circle and there's no difference, and the movement was the ideology was gaining ground, I would have fought it as vociferously as I'm fighting the other thing that he's doing with What is a Woman documentary. So this lady on that video literally said, in a nonchalant way, for instance, like Matt Walsh, he had a bad experience in Disneyland, or couldn't go to Disneyland or something like that as a child, and now suddenly he magically hates trans people because of it. I swear to God. So did what I just explained before about what Matt Walsh has given as his explanation, his underlying reason for fighting against this ideology. That has she not seen? Maybe it's because she refuses to watch, just like I couldn't go through her content for more than 30 seconds. Maybe she's equally turned off by the Matt Walshisms, and she's never even seen him say what I just described before. Perhaps it's that. But I'm inclined to think that, because I watched Matt Walsh's thing and I wanted to see why he's against these ideologies. He explained it perfectly well. He's like, it's just an assault on objective truth, that's all. Maybe she hasn't watched that. But maybe if she did, she wouldn't understand it. She would say, oh, he's just saying that. And the thing is, no, men think this is crazy, but the reason is that women and men think very differently. Like, if a woman, on average, would saw such an explanation from a Matt Walsh, or any Matt Walsh for that matter, she'll be like, that's too logical, because they have this, they're weird, they're feminine thinking, right? So, the emotional thinking. So it's like, well, yeah, I don't know, that's just too logical. Like, it just won't, it'll make sense in the moment, but then a minute later, when they press stop and do something else and go about their day, they'll be like, yeah, I kind of see what he said, but no, I don't buy it. He really has other reasons for it. He's doing it because of hatred, because he's not compassionate enough. It's always an emotional thing. He's not compassionate, he's not this. But what he says is the actual explanation. And the reason I'm, being critical of the stuff that Ema Watson's saying here is for similar reasons. It's the problem at its core is the social constructionist element of all this stuff. And it's destroying the fabric of the Western civilization, because let me tell you something, the West, this is delving into occultism waters now. We're going into occultism waters. But, sorry guys, I was really sick recently, so I'm still I'm not 100% recovered. So, there are 4 main races on Earth. According to astrology, they resonate to the 4 cardinal signs, which is Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. One of them are Europeans/whites, and that they correspond to Aries, which is out of those 4 signs, it's the fire sign, and it's the most yang one. Now that's the astrological occultic, is that a word? Occult explanation. But anyway, whatever way you look at it, I mean, the occult, which is the highest science that exists, that would explain things better than anything else. But for the muggles who don't understand this shit, let's just say, forget the occult explanation of the whys and wherefores. The point is, there is a core number of races on Earth. You know, the whites, yellows, the blacks, Middle Eastern, and then there's like combinations of like in between ones that are like mixtures of one or the other. But they're the 4 core ones, and it also corresponds perfectly with astrology, which of course proves that it's 100% true. So I can envision muggles laughing at that right now. It's you know, the scientism types thinking that astrology is woo-woo. Oh boy, people have got a lot of problems in the West. So the West, the whites are the most yang, the most fiery. Yang meaning not masculine in the sense that it has to be patriarchal. Yang is an energy, okay? It's a mentality. It's a way of life. It's a way of behaving. Like we are very focused. This is why we've got the scientism shit that I hate, because the yang element makes us look at the external world more. And it is the most yang civilization that exists. Therefore, we resonate like the spirituality that we need, the type of governance we need must be of a yang polarity, of a yang predisposition. If it is not, it's inimical to the West. It's like it's like kryptonite to the Western soul, to the Western civilization, to the Western society. And all these things are yin. Communism, feminism, socialism. Those things are yin in nature, and they therefore do not gel with Western civilization. So that's another aspect to this. I can delve more deeply into this stuff in other videos, and depending on how deep we want to go into the occultism elements of the discussions here, because this is more like my mainstream channel, where I want to teach like large masses of people. The new Aeon 2012, my first channel from 14 years ago. That's exclusively about occultism and spirituality. So if anyone's interested, it's going to be linked. But that's like, you know, I gave you like the the abbreviated version of the fact that there's an actual metaphysical reason behind why the West does not really do very well with communism and all that stuff, okay? And feminism is like a version of that. It's almost like an arm of Marxism, okay? I mean, hell, a lot of the figures that were prominent in feminism 50, 60 years ago were neo-Marxist, if you really look into it. I mean, I'm not going to give people all these dot connecting links and stuff, but you can, if you do your own diligence, your own due diligence, you will discover this. If you do your own dot connecting, whether it started like that to begin with, or it was co-opted by these bitter, you know, anti-life, civilization-hating neo-Marxist types, who knows? But the thing is that at some point, either from the very beginning or at some point, it became a vehicle for that neo-Marxist ideology. So it's pretty much the Marxist oppressed narrative, except in this case, in this version, it's just, you know, patriarchy is the oppressor and women and everyone else is the oppressed. So it's not something that can help the Western civilization thrive. It's just not. Like I said, you know, I'm quite harsh on the muggles, and I'm assuming that most people won't care or understand about their metaphysical component, but I might be surprised actually. Most people that are watching the video might actually find that interesting, about the 4 main races and the fact that the whites are the most yang out of all. So we especially must have like a capitalistic. I mean, capitalism is a Western thing to begin with, right? So that's why capitalism is a very yang, like it's like yang expressed in politics. A yang religion would be, I don't know, would it be Christianity? I mean, because it's a solar cult, so Sol is masculine, Luna is feminine, so maybe Christianity is also a yang religion, but I mean, it's been watered down so much where it's become destructive. So definitely New Ageism is very deleterious and very destructive for the West. The New Age religion, which is Christianity 2.0, if you must know. But anyway, I have tendencies. I constantly have to rein myself in to not go full on down the occultism and spirituality rabbit hole. But it's just my nature. I can't help myself. I love talking about this stuff as well. But yeah, this channel will be as milk toast as I possibly can. But the other one that I mentioned before will be fully breaking down all that stuff. And in the past few years, past several years, I have delved very deeply into studying the Kabbalah, which was something I avoided in the first half, or first, more than half of my red pill journey, my spiritual awakening journey since my early 20s. So I avoided that study for the longest time, but I did it later on. And I also incorporate that stuff, that knowledge, in the old channel, in my other YouTube channel. So a lot of that fits in very much so. It explains pretty much everything that's been happening in the world. And people will see, like if someone explains it well and breaks it down properly, even the dumbest person can see, fuck, something's going on here. Some satanic group, some dark occultists are doing this on purpose because they know the spiritual laws themselves, but they deliberately invert them. What they're trying to do is invert the polarities, basically, of men and women deliberately. So they can then, in a dark Luciferian fashion, upturn the entirety of creation itself. That's the ultimate end goal. And the end of that, like the final end goal, is to then, when they've done that and convinced everyone that, Prime Creator is not real. So they want to make us all into atheists, scientific atheists. Scientism will become the religion. Oh, I hate it so much, scientism. It's my biggest pet hate ever, out of everything. Because it's like the kryptonite to spirituality, right? So it's the worst thing ever, naturally. So then the ultimate goal is to enslave us to an AI god. That Noel Yuval Harari bullshit. Okay, get all the AI will eventually get all the religious texts in the world and make like a composite. Blah, blah, blah. But what will? Yeah, that's for him. Probably it's not really relevant, but anyway, it's still funny.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
Well, he's spiritually poor. Anyway. So yeah, that's about it. This is a long ass reaction video for a 10-minute clip. But I think this is all relevant, important information, and this is a more in-depth channel than your typical culture war politics thing where they just comment for about 20 minutes and it's like they act as if it's the first fucking time they've come across these things. Okay, I've been studying this stuff for almost 30 years now, so that's why a lot of the videos are going to be longer than the typical reactions or whatever. Whether they're reaction videos or not, I'll just be getting into more depth in general, whatever the topic may be. Yes, and I hope, if you got something out of it and enjoyed it, I hope you guys did. And if you did, you know the drill. Like, share, send it to some people that you might think will also like it and learn something new and get red-pilled or even more red pill than they already are. The likes especially play a big difference with the algorithm, so thanks for helping. Comment underneath so we can have a bit of a discussion going, of course. Be polite. If you don't agree with something, don't yell at me. Check the website as well. I've got energy healing as well, like Reiki healing services and stuff, and various books that are out or that are coming soon in 2024, etc. And I will definitely see you soon, because now I am on a roll with this one and I'm making videos almost daily. See you very soon, guys. Thanks.